Femi rolled on his mattress as his alarm went off. Dear God, it's 5 a.m. already, K. I doubt if I have slept up to 3 hours. He hissed and got up. What type of life is this, safe? Who would believe that a whole me, overall graduating student of accounting will still be at this level after almost 6 years of graduation? Even Paul that spent all his days partying and chasing girls while on campus is now working in an oil firm. Only God knows how he got the job, safe. But me, most promising the also bathroom with illiterates in this nonsense apartment and drinking Garri almost every day. I'm not claiming to be a saint, but God knows I don't deserve this suffering. He picked up his bucket and said a quick prayer. God, I beg, may I not jam anyone in the bathroom this morning? Femi headed for the bathroom at the back of the face me I face your apartment he was living in. Good morning, Mama Diola, he said. The woman looked at him from head to toe and asked, what is good about this morning here, uncle? What is the good thing about waking up in Nigeria every day? You wake up and start running up and down, trying to make ends that never meet. She hissed again. Femi sighed. He thought of telling her not to worry, that Nigeria will soon be good and things will turn around. But he knew going down that lane would only lead to another series of endless rants from Amadiola. Besides, with what he was facing at the moment, he doubts if he believes in things turning out for the better. It is well, Mama Diola. We would all be fine, he said finally. He opened the bathroom and saw a bucket of water inside with no one there. I beg, these guys have started again. Why will you put water in the bathroom when you know you are not ready to bathe, eh? He made an attempt to put the water outside when he heard a voice from one of the rooms, which he recognized to be that of Folake, the troublemaker they all tried to avoid in the compound. Nobody should touch my water, oh, hey, hey. If you know you want to bathe early, get up before me and take your bath. I'm on my way already. God, I beg. Didn't we just discuss during the last meeting that no one should put water inside the bathroom unless you were ready to bathe? But what is this nonsense again, Nítorí Ọlọ́run? You better fling that bucket outside and bathe if you have something good to do with your day. We all know that lady is not coming out in the next 30 minutes, Mama Jela said from behind. Thank you, Ma, he said, and entered the bedroom. Funny how over 5 people used the bedroom after him before Folake finally made her way to the bedroom to have her bath. By then, he was already leaving the house to the school he was teaching. God, please, I really need to get out of this place. I can't cope with all this anymore. The drama here is just too much. Femi, as usual, was one of the first teachers to get to school that morning. His punctuality and readiness to do any work given to him has been one that has made him stand out among all other teachers and has made the principal of the school take a special interest in him, even though the special interest often meant more workload with little pay. Or how do you explain teaching 4 different subjects to all the senior classes? He loved the challenge that came with it though. At least his busy schedule makes him forget how miserable his life is, but the pay was just too small. All that stress for 40K. He rolled his eyes as he opened the staff office. We go again today, he said aloud. Life hasn't always been this way for Femi. Femi was an only child who came from a middle-class family in Nigeria. His parents, especially his mom, spared nothing in making sure he lived a comfortable life. During his undergraduate days, he had a thriving tutorial center, in addition to the monthly upkeep his parents sent to him. He was made an ESCO in his fellowship on campus and also occupied different positions at different times within his department and faculty. His life was the definition of success. He balanced all of these tasks so well that you would think he was involved in only one, but one thing he had failed to learn was financial discipline. He never saw the need to be prudent with his spending. Outside of his reckless spending, he was the dream child every parent prayed to have. The boyfriend every lady on campus wanted to have, although he was a bit too uptight to have one back then. He got whatever he wanted whenever he felt like and couldn't be bothered. His father had tried talking to him about his reckless spending habit at some point, but he would go on and on about how he knew what he was doing. He had a thriving business, which he was sure he would be able to replicate wherever he finds himself. And besides, he was sure he would get a job after school, so they had nothing to worry about. Money would never stop flowing was his mantra. I have what it takes to turn anything into money, he would tell them. Little did he know that life had other plans for him, and Shege was no respecter of man. Femi got a job in one of the financial institutions upon graduation, and everything went on smoothly. It was as though he landed on the bed of rose part of life. He moved out of his parents' house into a beautifully furnished three-bedroom apartment, which he even took out some loan to finish up. His ever-prudent dad had warned him about how he was spending wastefully, and as he was still a bachelor who didn't need more than a room and parlor safe-con to survive. He even suggested him staying back at the houseboys' quarters so he could save his money. But he went on and on about how he needed his independence, needed to build a life for himself and all of that. I have been so committed to book and everything that I forgot to live life while on campus, Dad. Just let me be. His mother did little to nothing in helping the situation, as she told him to live his life and he can be sure he would have them to fall back on if anything ever goes wrong. Things took a downward turn a year later when he lost both of his parents in a tragic accident. His uncles and aunties took charge of the property and left him with nothing, and as if that was not enough, he lost his job barely 6 months after his parents' passing. Mr. Femi, you are one of the brightest minds we have in this organization, and I would do anything to retain you. But the head office has requested that we close this branch, and only the senior staff will be transferred to another branch. His manager had told him one Monday morning. I wish you the best in your future endeavors. You are a brilliant young man, and I am sure you would have no problem getting another job. And don't forget to call me if you need a reference letter or anything in that direction, he had said before handing him his sack letter. The bank was nice enough to give a 3 month salary as bonus and compensation, but if only he knew what laid ahead of him, he would have spent the money wisely, cut down on his reckless spending and buying of unnecessary things. He made some not so smart financial decisions during that period and blew up over half of the money. By the time he came to his senses, he had barely enough to survive for 2 weeks in his account. While all this were happening, he kept getting rejection mails from companies he had applied to, and 4 months down the line, there was still nothing to show for it. At that point, he had started selling some of his belongings so he could feed, and his house rent was also close to expiring. Everything seemed not to be working well for him, and it was out of this desperation that he had followed a friend to a prayer house, which ended up taking him from fire pan to fire. The prophet told him it was one of his uncles in the village that was responsible for all his misfortunes, and all he needed to do was bring 2 white fowls without any spot, 5 coconuts, different colors of candles, and 5 torchlights so they could lighten up his life, alongside the white wrapper, and that the prayer would be done by 12 midnight at the T junction close to the church. Even though the request seems absurd, and he had spoken against things like that back when he was an ESCO on campus, but suffering seems to have suspended his sense of reasoning. He went for the prayer, and days after, it was as if all hell broke loose on him. He started seeing himself in strange places in his dreams. His parents' friends, who had been supportive of him in previous times, suddenly stopped picking his calls. His landlord had given him a 2 weeks notice to move out of his house, and that he didn't mind returning the remaining 2 months rent he had left. He told him bad luck was following him and he didn't want any part in it. It was at this stage that he was forced to move into the Face Me I Face You apartment he now lived, and unlike the former him, he used the 2 months rent fee to pay a 2 years advance fee for the apartment he now lived. It was during one of his walking up and down looking for job adverts that he stumbled on the advert of a school looking for teachers, and it seems whatever bad luck that was on him didn't show up that day. He got the job, and even though the salary was a far cry from what he was used to, he was in no position to make negotiations or say no to the offer. Present day. Femi stretched on his chair in the staff room and yawned. God I beg, just pity me and make things work for me again. I have learnt my lesson and I promise to do better if I get out of here. His eyes went to the flyer someone had dropped on his table during the day and he eased. Abeg, I no dey follow anybody go any church again. I have had enough and only God knows if it's another fake prophet or one of these motivational speakers masquerading as pastors that just want to gas people up into dropping money, all in the name of tithing and sowing seed. Let me stay in my house and be reading my Bible, jeje abeg. Mrs. Florence, the lady that dropped the flyer on his desk, entered the staff room just as he was standing up to leave. Ah, Mr. Femi, good evening. I dropped the flyer on your desk, she said. Yeah, I saw it, he said. What I need at the moment is a job, madam, not all this nonsense invitation. Give me an update on the latest job opening in town, or you connect me to a better plug. After all, I heard your husband is a big man and you are just working here to pass time, he said. Mrs. Florence smiled. I am actually here because I love teenagers and I believe this is one of the ways I can have access to them and help imbibe some moral and godly character into them before they all go out and interact with the real world. Femi stared at her, wondering what he had gotten himself into. This woman would go on and on about how this is purpose for her and all of that. Make she shall finish quickly and let me be on my way, Biko. To his surprise, she stopped talking, handed him another flyer from her bag and made her way to leave. You know what? Why don't you let me drop you off? I need to get something around your street. Now you are talking, Femi responded. Let me get my things and join you. Femi entered her car and couldn't help but wonder how someone who was comfortable and had things going on for her would subject herself to teaching in a school like this. He had even had other teachers gossiping about the various businesses she has in town, which she never speaks of. How are you doing, Mr. Femi? She asked him. He thought of responding with the usual I am fine, but for some strange reasons, he felt something break inside of him. He could feel the walls he had built up over the years crashing down, and a part of him just wanted to be vulnerable. He felt safe. He opened his mouth to talk and ended up narrating his entire life story to Mrs. Florence. I think I am cursed, he said finally amidst tears. He didn't even realize she had parked her car until he looked up to see that they were no longer driving. Nothing seems to be working in my life. I have been at this job for 4 years and I've watched the other teachers that are not as qualified or brilliant as me get exciting opportunities elsewhere. Let's not even talk about my mates back in school. Everyone seems to be living a good life, where I'm just here stuck. Nothing is working. What others do and succeed at, I know if I try that it will not work out. Mrs. Florence handed him a tissue to wipe his tears. You know, life deals with people in different ways, and no two persons' paths are the same, she said. Everyone has different battles that life has handed them, but it is up to you to step up to the challenge. The worst thing that can ever happen to any human is for them to think of themselves as victims. Once you start seeing yourself as a victim, you hand over your ability to do something about what is happening to you. You resign to fate and accept whatever life throws at you without fighting back because you start to see everything as an attack on your person. That's so true, ma, Femi replied. I have been blaming everything that happened to me on my parents' death, without even considering the fact that the path I was headed, even when they were still alive, was not a good one. I have made myself into someone who wants everyone to pity him and understand where he's coming from. I have been so focused on landing a good job that I have forgotten that it isn't all there is to life. They continued in that line of conversation till Femi got out of the car. Femi laid in his bed that night and couldn't shake off the conversation he had with Mrs. Florence. It looks like I am still stuck in my past, he said to himself. It's like I haven't come to terms with my present conditions. I have been at this job for the past 4 years, but I still want people to see me and respect me based on my past success. Femi, you are presently a first-class graduate working in a secondary school and earning 40,000 naira, he said to himself. You also live in a face me, I face you apartment. The problem is not you being a teacher, because that is a noble job. But the problem is that you have settled. You see yourself as someone that everything is working against, that you don't even try to get out. All you do is wish things were different and talking about the good old days without taking any action. You become satisfied with the local champion you are at your place of work, that you have unconsciously become scared of trying out new things. Or when last did you submit your CV to any company or try to do something new? He asked himself aloud. Femi picked up the flyer Mrs. Florence gave him and read what was written on it. How to take your life back, a 2 days mentoring program for young men and women who are interested in becoming all they were created to be. He decided he was going to attend. Femi attended the 2 day section and participated in all the activities like his life depended on it. The prayer section was one he couldn't forget. It was as though a heavy load was lifted off him and he felt lighter than he had ever been in years. Now he knew what to do. He saw the areas he had been lagging and also saw how nothing happens by chance. You have to be deliberate about every area of your life and take responsibility for your life. No one is coming to save you, was a statement one of the speakers made, and he was going to carry that with him forever. Femi made a mental note to speak to the principal about his workload the following day. I need some free time to attend to myself, he said to himself. He found his way to the principal office the following Monday. Good morning, sir, he said as the principal gestured at him to take his seat. I have been thinking about the number of subjects and classes I take in the school, sir. As much as I have been able to deliver, it has been affecting my personal productivity and also reducing my efficiency. The workload on me is a bit too much, sir, and I would appreciate if you can get someone to cover for some subjects and classes I take. To his surprise, the principal agreed and told him of how he had been thinking of employing more staffs and increasing the salary of the whole staff. By the end of the month, everything had been reshuffled and it was down to teaching one subject to the senior classes. He dedicated the extra time he got from his job to learning a new skill and also started a tutorial center for students preparing for their WAEC. In no time at all, the place was filled up, and the money he made from running the tutorial center per month was more than what he was being paid where he was teaching. About a year later, he got a scholarship for a master's program abroad. As he prepared to leave the country, he couldn't help but wonder how far he had come and what was possible when you take charge of your life, instead of waiting for things to be handed to you. And how would he forget the role Mrs. Florence had played in his life? She had introduced him to her husband, and the two of them had carefully mentored him into the man he was today. They sometimes made him forget his parents were dead, as they treated him as their own. Truly, life only smiles at those who take responsibility for their life.